Okay, well, here, let me just move my chat pod. So I'm gonna try to do my best to double duty here today. So let's get started. Okay, all right, I'm gonna start by sharing my screen. Let's see, I want to share screen one. I apologize, I've got multiple screens set up, so it might get a little hairy. Okay, so the Octi SHSM resources can be found on the octi.ca website. So if you're not familiar with the site, it's octi.ca. Scroll down to online learning, choose the SHSM button, and then you'll get kind of a bit of a disclaimer in terms of what how the SHSM resources are structured, how you can make a copy of the site, how to edit the Google site, and then these are the resources that we've got developed. They're generally all developed around a similar template for the certifications. So we're going to talk about the project management one right now, because that's the one that's got the most automation built into it. So you basically go to the project management link, and this is the site. So this is the site that is publicly available. It's forward facing. So regardless of what data management system you're using, you should be able to get in and use it. Okay. So if you're not a Google board, and as I know some of you aren't, you can link this content into whatever system you're using, D2L, like Moodle, or what have you. And it's just like the same way as you would link into an external website. And so all of the content is provided here for the students to work through at their own pace, okay? There's no assessment pieces here, or no assessment pieces visible for the students, okay? There's a teacher resource portion, which basically allows other people who've used the site to potentially request access to it. We are only granting access to OCT qualified teachers. And that's why you'll notice on the form, it does ask for your OCT qualification number, so that way we can make sure it is only going to teachers and not some creative student who decides they want to get the answers and sell them on whatever. So that's basically the base content. Now, on the back side, let me see, which tab is it? This is what it looks like behind the scenes when you look at it from a Google Sites perspective. And if you're not familiar with Google Sites, it basically is a shell in which you can build websites. It's fairly straightforward. It's pretty WYSIWYG in terms of you basically drop in your templates and type of thing. Very similar to creating a slide deck using any of the PowerPoint, Google Slides type of arrangements. So you create your website structure using kind of inserting pages, that type of thing. You can set which things are visible. So if you notice down here, I've got module 1 assessment, because I structured this site to be autonomous so that kids could work on it asynchronously, and then complete assessments as they work through the material. But I didn't necessarily want that information being hosted on the Octi site, because we don't want students coming in and utilizing it thinking they're doing it for your board, and then we have us having to navigate what the security piece for student data is, because we're not set up for that. So that's why I've hidden those. They're there, and you can see I've got it set up as a Google form that's structured as a quiz, and I'll walk you through how you can do that. But you can completely see all of the structure for the site as you're building it, right? And here's where we've included the downloadable assessments. So when you go to make a copy of the site, you get all of this material. You get everything that you think you're going to need in order to recreate this within the context of your own board. If I'm a classroom teacher, I could either choose to recreate the whole thing myself, or I could utilize Octi's common learning material that's posted on the Octi site, and then just recreate the assessments within the context of my Google Classroom or D2L, whatever. And it really, this is where you as a classroom teacher or as a board lead determine what's the best approach for you in your situation. The content was designed so that it could be integrated within the context of a course. So if I'm a tech design teacher or a construction teacher or any other tech teacher and want to deliver a unit on project management because it aligns with my curriculum, then I can take this, take the assessments, tweak the assessments if I want to, and basically use it as part of my curriculum. Or if I just want to be able to offer project management certification to students who aren't necessarily in a related course, then I could set it up and have students do it on their own time and work through it at their own pace and still earn that certification. Okay. And again, I'll show you how all the back end works for that. Okay. I'm going to ask, does anyone have any questions about anything that I've just kind of initially showed you? Okay. So the certification, how it works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how something is published. So I am going to go and I am going to let you all have access to the module 1 assessment. So basically I'm going over to the module 1. I'm going to click and I'm going to say show in navigation. And then I'm going to go up here to the publish button. Okay, what happens is any edit I make is just an edit. It isn't going to go live until you publish it, right? And so what Google does is it tells you, okay, this is what is currently published, and then this is what you're going to. Okay. Oops, I forgot to do something. Right. I just got to alter one of the navigation buttons here. Okay, so go here. So I'm going to go to this next page, and I want this to go to the assessment. Okay, so I want it to go there, and I go update. All right, perfect. Now I go publish. Okay, I go publish. Okay, and so now, if you go to that Octi Google site, and I do a quick refresh, if I go down to module 1, now there's the module 1 assessment is included there. So what I'm going to ask is for you to see some of the automation is if you could, like on your own, is if some of you could kind of kindly click in to look at the assessment and kindly complete the assessment. I'm not worried about, don't worry about getting wrong answers. It's all multiple choice. Just do a quick click, 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 click. And let's get some data so that you can see how the automation is set up. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that. And if anyone has any questions while people are doing that, please feel free.
Hi, Chris, it's Sharon. While people are doing that, can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
When you were editing the site,
Yep.
Is it just you're making a copy of it and you're editing it, or will it change the original, or can you keep the original site as is in case you want to edit it back from the original that was shared with us?
So what we've done is we have a clean Octi site that's basically the kind of the one that is forward facing that everyone sees. We actually have a draft site that's in the background as a copy of the real site. That's what we're sharing with you, so that you can make a copy of that. And then, because what we've already discovered is that some people like think they've made a copy and then they go mucking around with our original, with our copy. And we've had to revert to previous save versions, which you can do. You could restore a previous version that, like, Google still allows that functionality within Google Sites. But I recommend once you make a copy is like make 2 copies, right? That way one becomes your editable, and then one is your clean, your base document that in the event something completely blows up, that you've got something to go back to.
Okay, thank you. That was my question. Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. And yes, the session is being recorded because I know some people couldn't be here for this, as well as we wanted to, just in case for future reference, if you have some further questions you want to relate back to it. Okay, so I'm going to go into my certification. Oop, that's not the one. Where did it go? Here it is. And let me do a quick refresh. All right, so we got 5 people who've responded. Okay, that's fine. So this is the Google form that I've set up to collect the assessments because we're a Google board. So it essentially is a Google form. The only difference with it is when you go and you edit your form, sorry, I keep forgetting where it is. Okay, you can actually choose the structure of it. Okay, and this is where, depending on how you're leveraging it, you can restrict it to users within your own organization. So if you only want your students accessing it, I would highly suggest you click that. If you've got board email addresses that you want students doing, I would strongly urge you keep that collect the email address clicked. And that way, then the Google site automatically, or the Google form automatically picks up whatever email address is associated with that student's login. And because that is the email address is what we're going to use to kind of correlate all the data. So if you allow students to enter their email address themselves, you're always going to run the risk that a kid may have used their personal like Gmail account at one point, and then their board email account at another time, and then they might have used something else a third time. And then that's going to make it really difficult to compare data later when we go to figure out whether this kid's completed all the necessary modules or not. So I really urge you to say, collect the email addresses, and if it's only going to be used within the context of your own organization, then I would say restrict the users to your own organization, and that way you're not going to allow any outside email addresses to come in. Okay. Presentation, you can basically edit your confirmation message around thank you for completing the assessment, blah, 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 blah. And we give you all this data, all this content if you want, or you create your own. Really, for our purposes, the issue or the biggest piece is we're turning this form into a quiz. Okay? And so once you take it, turn it into a quiz, you get some additional functionality with it. Okay? So you can release the grades immediately after each submission. You can, respondents can see correct answers, and that type of thing. Okay. When you go into a question, okay, so I'll go down into one of the questions here. So here, for example, it's going to ask you to establish where is the correct answer. So you enter your options, and then you go into your answer key, and then you basically highlight, well, what is the correct answer? And you assign how many point values you want it to be, okay, et cetera, et cetera. You can have multiple correct answers for questions if that's the way you choose to structure your assessment, whatever you feel is the best assessment strategy or interest for your students. Okay. And so then you basically go through your quiz and assign all those values. So you'll get a running total across the top. How many points is it? I've structured this with various sections. So as the kids move through it, they're only getting X number of questions at a time. So that way they don't have to scroll, because I find if kids have to scroll past more than, well, kids, I even say adults. If adults have to scroll their screen, they're less likely to complete the screen. So I try to chunk it in such a way that it's more consumable. And that's just through using sections. And if you're not familiar with sections, all it is, it's, where is it? It's this title and descriptor, or you can add a section through here, and basically what allows you to just split questions between two areas. Okay.
Chris, can I ask a question? This is Irene.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I really apologize if this was mentioned at the very beginning. and I did not participate in the unpacking of this resource. Can you remind me, when you're talking about changing questions, that's if we want to customize it, but has this already been built in with all the content if we want to use it as is? Is that correct?
If you're a Google board and you want to take a straight copy of it, yeah, I can share with you all of the forms, all of the quizzes, all of that stuff, so it's as is, ready to go. The only thing that you will have to do is you'll have to do a little bit of coding on the back end, because some of the information requires a local address. So wherever you're going to house it within your infrastructure, you'll need to make those modifications. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. You can keep it as a complete canned package, and it's just turnkey and it's ready to go. We've also, like I said, we've also provided the text file so that if you have people who want to recreate it in their own tool systems, then that's possible as well. It's just an exercise of cutting and pasting.
And I apologize. The second question I had is, in terms of implementation, would you recommend that it comes from like at a school level from a sector teacher, or would you do it at a central level, or would that be too large to manage at a central level?
Well, I'm doing it at a central level in my board. So I've basically said, you know what, here is the SHSM project management opportunity. I'm altering slightly that I'm having a different landing page, a home page, where students are going to be able to identify whether they're doing this as part of a course. And if they click on that button, then it's going to give them some message to say, well, really, you need to connect with your classroom teacher to make sure that you're completing the assessments that that individual wants them to do. Or if they're completing it on their own as part of their SHSM, they'll click on another button. And if they're completing it on their own, then that's going to take them into like the completely canned automated SHSM certification, and then they can work through it on their own. The beauty of the way that this is structured is that they can work on it on their own, and provided they complete a module, like it will allow them to continue to work through when they come back, let's say an hour later or whatever. And so once they complete a module and complete the assessment, and it's recorded and it goes into a central data bank, and then we'll be able to reference it later for cross-referencing purposes.
Last question.
Yep.
Is there content developed for all the sectors in the drop-down menu from the first form, or is it for all sectors that we have back-end content already developed?
For the project management, yes.
For project management specifically,
Yeah, the project management, because it goes across all SHSM sectors. We have some content in there specific to ICT, construction, business. We're kind of like the big ones. But the content isn't so curriculum specific that it wouldn't have no application in the others. Right, so health and wellness or arts and culture. I mean, project management is a good base skill that I think we all need to have. So that's why we chose to kind of explore it as one of the initial certifications that we were offering through OCTI.
Okay, thank you so much. So the content is the same, and it's not sector-specific content, broad across examples from a variety of sectors.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so in terms of responses, so this is you basically within the Google form or the Google quiz now, you'll kind of get a overall picture of who's completed the form, okay, and you can see overall performance on particular questions, all that type of data. If you want to get into individual responses, you can do that too. You just simply click over, and then you can start scrolling through individual responses. You can do the same thing for questions. So there's some functionality built within Google that allows you to do some of that stuff, which is great. But for our purposes, from an automation perspective, really where you want to go is into the Google Sheet. And this is what it looks like. Okay, so you get a kind of a running listing of what time the individual completed the assessment, the email address that was collected. It will populate the score based on your quiz values. And then you get your names and all the data fields that were part of the quiz. Okay. Okay. So that's all here. So this is where some of the automation comes in. So I needed to figure out, okay, so a certain student does the quiz, and it marks it, great. Well, how do I know whether that student completed it or not? Right? Because at the end of the day, these kids are going to do 4, 5, 6 assessments over the course of this activity, and I'm going to have to compile that somehow. Right? So I need to know quickly who passed and who failed. And yes, I use the failed word. So this is where I had to put in a little bit of coding. And if you scroll to, scroll to the far end of the form, okay, I put it as one of the last columns. So I say module 1 status, and then this is where I put in an if statement. And so basically what this does, it's calculating whether the student was successful or not. And basically all it does is it says, it takes the value if, and then you do a bracket, whatever the cell value where the score is housed, divided by whatever the quiz is out of, is greater than equal to whatever you determine to be the passing criteria. For the project management certification, we used 70% as the benchmark because that's what's recognized in industry for most project management certification, is that a 70% is considered a pass. Okay, so if a kid gets equal to or greater than 70%, they get said there's a pass that's returned as a cell value, and if they get less than 70%, then they get a fail. Okay, and that's what you're going to see here. Now, so that's one piece of coding that you basically, that I chose to put in. Otherwise, it's having to go and figure out yourself whether calculate it. And that's not what Chris, I was looking for.
So for somebody who doesn't want to use an if statement, they can always go back to that column with the numerator, denominator, and say, you know, anything 18 out of 24.
Exactly.
Yeah, gotcha.
Exactly. You could do that if you wanted. So there's 2 ways you can do this. I can put the formula in that first cell and then just take this little bottom right-hand corner button, and I can just copy that down to whatever number, hundreds of cells or whatever, and assuming that you actually catch the number of students that actually have done it, right? Which is one way of doing it, and that's probably the easiest way. Because I've got so many students, I said, you know what? There's another option, and that's using an add-on. And I've included the add-on in that Word file, or sorry, Google document that I shared with you. And it's called Copy Down. Okay, so if you go to add-ons, it's called Copy Down. I've included the link for you. So if you want to run that, if you want to download and add that into your Google Sheet, you can. So, but what Copy Down does is it scans a spreadsheet, and then it looks for formulas. And then it's going to ask you, do you want to copy that formula down to each subsequent incident of entry or data in the cell or in that column? So I've got it set up so that every time someone completes this form, Copy Down duplicates this formula in their cell. So it automatically updates as people complete the form, right? Or the quiz. So that's a little bit of automation that I find to be very, very helpful. And it's very straightforward. Once you've actually put in the formula, when you run Copy Down, it'll scan it and says, oh, there it is. Hey, and okay, and it's on, and you just say setting, and it's doing it. So it's running, right? It asks you what row the formula is. And so let's say, for example, you've got maybe 2 header rows and you want to change that to say in row 3 is where the formula is going to run. Again, it's going to scan it, and then it's going to say, okay, well, there's the formula in row 3. right? So it does that. If you don't want to have it on, you can turn it off, and then you don't have to worry about it, and you just copy it down yourself. Okay, so those two options with copy down. Okay. The next piece with the spreadsheet automation was communicating back to the students. So now we know who's passed and who's failed based on their attempt. So the next one that we used was an email tool called Formule. And basically what Formule does is it allows you to create email messages and sends them out automatically to recipients once a certain condition is met, right? And it's fairly straightforward to set it up. So it asks you to determine which sheet in your spreadsheet it's going to be looking at the data for. Okay? And it wants to know whether it's going to be running on a form trigger. So when someone submits a form, or whether you want to run it once a day at the end of the day, whatever. You can set it either way. I've got it set as form trigger. So basically every time someone completes the quiz, and those of you who completed the quiz, hopefully you should have received an email saying whether you were successful or not in completing this quiz. You determine how many different email communications are you going to have. So in this case, we've got two different options. Either you were successful or you're not. So we've got two templates, template one, and then you set the condition. So I basically look through all my spreadsheet, okay, and I'm going to say module one status, okay. Boom, there it is. Okay, and there's the condition. I say it's pass. Okay, module one status, and then I set the condition to fail. This is where if I really wanted to and not use the if statement and just left it as a number, I could say, you know what, I just want this to be 0.7, okay, or great, and like, you know what I mean? But then again, then you're having to get into situations, well, like, can I put in a value of, is it greater than 0.7? I've actually never done that, so I wondered if it would work. But because it's saying equal to, I'm not sure. So that's why I did that bit of coding to say it was a pass-fail kind of type of scenario. Okay? Because that way it covers the range of the different values the kids are potentially going to be able to earn. Okay? So then once you set your conditions for triggering your email, then it's going to ask you to edit your templates or create the email message. And again, I will share with you all of this material, and this is going to look a little intimidating. I apologize. It's basically what this does is it scans your column headers, and it provides you the opportunity to take data out of those columns and embed them into your communication. So email address. So I basically click on that, and then I can just paste it in here. If I collected, let's say, a teacher email address, then I could take that value and I could put it in the CC button. If I wanted to go to myself as the SHSM teacher or lead, and I want to know every time a kid fails, I can put that in there. Oops, on my autocorrect, damn. Let me put that back. I didn't want it to do that. Ugh. Email address. If you want to see a reply email, so if a kid has any problems, you can enter your email there, and then they'll be able to reply to the email message, and it'll come to whatever email address you enter. So you have some options in that situation. So you name it, congratulations, whoever. So this is a past condition. You've successfully completed. Now, I've entered some HTML in here, and that's just to help it read properly. And I'll show you what that means. So here's what it looks like. It's so congratulations to the student's name. You've successfully completed the first module, blah, 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 blah. Please proceed to module 2. And now I've put in a hyperlink so that it takes them automatically to module 2. If you don't want to get into the hypertext and the hyperlink, then you can just leave it as it's go on to module 2, and the student has to do that themselves. Okay? And that's an option as well. Okay? So essentially, you basically craft your two communications, and here's the failed communication. Okay. Okay. And as I scroll down, here's a situation where, sorry, Scott, this Scott wasn't successful. And then it says, go back and reattempt the quiz again. Okay. And then there's an opportunity for further assistance. Okay. So you basically have the opportunity to kind of see what your communication is going to look like. And then at the end of it, you go save and send all. So it's basically going to scan the form the first time only. And it's going to look for opportunities to send these communications out. Now, because this was already running when you guys completed the form, it automatically sent as it was going. So you should have received your email saying you're successful or not. And it's going to run automatically because I've got it set to do it on the condition of when someone submits the form. Okay. So I'm going to stop here and see if anyone's got any questions.
Sharon.
Yes, Sharon.
I missed part of this session. I had to go to the bathroom. I apologize. Not that you needed to know that, but if like you're recording this, oh, and great. So now you've got that recorded, but you're going to be sending that out to all the participants, the recorded version of this session.
That's up to you guys. If you guys tell me you don't want it going out and you just want to have access to it for your own personal reference, that's fine. I'm happy to do that. If no one has any issue with it being shared, I'm fine with that too. I want to respect everyone's privacy and wishes with that.
Yeah, I might have missed the part that you said about how to access this recording.
Well, that we haven't fully sorted out yet. I mean, I might just host it on my Octi Google Drive and then just share the link with whoever is interested, and just that way, and you can consume it at your own leisure.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, because I missed parts of it. So
Yep.
I need to be able to refer back to the parts that I missed.
Absolutely. And so Lata, yeah, this is Formula right now as the add-on. Okay.
Okay, so I'll look forward to getting access to the recording then.
Yeah, please. And if anyone has any questions about any of this stuff, like, and you look at the recording or you just want to send me an email, please just email me. Like, I'm happy to support anyone through this, because there's a lot of potential efficiencies in doing stuff this way. If I can help you kind of get it set up to make your lives easier, I'm happy to do so. Okay, so this essentially is how all of the assessments using Google Forms are structured. So you can go in, and this module's got 6 different modules. So there are 6 unique assessments, and they're all multiple choice based. So this is where classroom teachers may decide, you know what, multiple choice really isn't the most I guess respectful way to accommodate students' needs, and they may decide they want to change the assessment to be more collaborative, in-person, and that's completely up to them, and that's completely doable. But from an automation perspective, questions that aren't true or false or multiple choice become a little bit more difficult to automate the marking of, and then you're potentially going to run into situations where you might get false positives or false negatives, right, when you're doing it that way. So that's where everyone use your professional discretion which way you want to go with it. Okay, so the last piece that I wanted to show you is Module 6 assessment, and that's where things get a little bit more involved. That's assessment 1. Where is it? All right. Oh, I didn't talk about this. So whatever you guys choose to do, however you choose to structure it, I strongly urge you to create a folder in your Google Drive, name it, put everything relating to this certification in that folder, and don't move it. Because as soon as you start moving things around, then it becomes different hyperlink texts and it gets messy. So like I took the time to create a project management certification folder. And then I thought about, well, what different elements am I going to have? So I've got completed certifications, I've got a French version, and then I've got website text. And how I was also naming my documents helped me structure it. So I've got the failed communication. So I've got a template set up so that I can just cut and paste. There it is. Okay. I've got the past communication. Okay, same type of idea. I've got the master text files. So if you want to see all the assessments as one document, okay, it's there. Right, so if everything completely fell apart, I ever needed to recreate it, I can do that. Okay, and I have all of my various assessments with the form as well as the spreadsheet. Right, so it's all in one spot. Okay, so once the kids complete all the assessments and they get to the last one, so this is the last assessment in the module. So it looks all very similar to the other assessments in the front end, right? So in terms of, okay, there's this email address, there's a score, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Okay, so there's where I said the module 6 status, and then whether that, and it's got the same coding that I had in the others. So it determines through an if statement whether this individual was successful or not. But then I go into, well, I had to figure out a way, well, how am I going to determine if this kid has completed all of the other modules? And so what I came up with was, well, I'm going to import whether they were successful or not from all the other modules into this one. And then at the end of it, I'm just going to count up how many passes and how many fails. And if the kid got 6 passes, well, there you go. Congratulations, you got your SHSM certification. So, and then how I did that was using two formulas. The first one is called an import range. And what that does is it allows you to link spreadsheets, right? So what it does is using the import range function, you literally cut and paste the hypertext into the document, and then you're going to tell it where you want to put the range of the information that you want to extract from that import range, and then it's going to put it starting wherever you have that in your form. Okay, so that's the first formula or function that I utilized. The second one I used is a VLOOKUP. Okay. So what a VLOOKUP does is it looks for data. It allows you to scan 2 data sets and look for common elements. Okay. So in this case, what VLOOKUP is doing is it's looking up the value in B2. Okay, so if I go across here and I'll show you, oh, B2 is the email address. Okay, hopefully every kid is used the same email address to answer the quizzes, which is why I was telling you, if you're going to restrict it to your users, collect the email address, and that way it's done. Everyone's same email address should be used, right? Because when we get into this function, it allows us to search it easy. So what it does is I'm looking for email address in all of this data that I just imported. Okay, so like that's data, it's looking in that data, it's looking for that kid's email address. okay? When it finds that kid's email address, it's going to count across to the 22nd row or 22nd column, and I can change that number to be whatever. It depends on what data I want, but I wanted to know where I had that pass fail. So if I go back to that spreadsheet, module 5, and I go to the 22nd column, that's where I've got that value. Okay? And then I wanted to return that exact data piece. So that's why it's 0. And so that's how I got the kid failed. Well, I think it was me. I failed. And I basically do that for each of the 4 or each of the modules that I have. Okay? And then at the end of it, I use a count if statement. So basically, I say it's counting all of the values through there, and then and I've set it to be equal to 6. Okay? And then if it's 6, it's a pass. If it's less than that, it's a fail. Okay. That is probably the most intense bit of coding that you will have to do on all of this. Right. And it really just happens to be because of that importing the range, the data values from the other spreadsheets. But this is where, if you start moving around your spreadsheet or where you have your quizzes and that type of stuff, this is where it becomes difficult to kind of, you'll just have to modify this form so that you can be collecting the proper bits of data, right? And having it compile properly. Okay. Any questions about that?
Chris, when we receive sort of the shell for this, if it has your formulas in place, for those of us who are comfortable enough with formulas, we could just copy paste like our own information. Like, will we see that piece with your formulas in place?
Yeah, when you copy the Google site, you won't necessarily get my forms, but if you want my forms, I'm happy to share my forms.
Okay, thank you. I might reach out because I'm rusty, and then all I would just do is just change the formula so that it points to my drive and my files.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, by all means,
Okay.
do what you, like, yes.
I'm cheating, I know.
No, it works fine. Okay. So
Chris, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's Warren here.
Yep.
So a student does module 1 and fails.
Yep. Yep.
Student does module 1 and fails. Student does
Yep.
module 1 and passes.
Mm-hmm.
His record is written over top of each other, right? So there's only one
Yes.
record attempt because of
Yes.
the is unique.
Yes. Yeah, what happens is the way I've got it set up, and this is where you need to have some discussion within your own board in terms of what you want your assessment policy to be. I have it in such that they can go back and edit their responses. So if someone goes back and edits a response, it will allow that edited response to be the most recent version in that cell. So for example, if I go over here to like one of the attempts, so if I change this question to be whatever on the spreadsheet, it will update here, and I'll only ever see that, the most recent response.
Right. I was just concerned that in your form and after assessment 6, you want to know whether they passed module 1. Well, if the student had 4 attempts at it, it's just going to pick up the one record that they did pass.
Yeah, as soon as it will run continually, right? Actually, that's a good question.
Because if there's multiple entries in your assessment form for module 1, it's a fail, 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 pass.
I remember how I got around that. And that is, I actually run So okay, that's an excellent question to lead into where my next thing is going. So the last add-on that I use with this is Autocrat. Autocrat is very similar to a Formule, but Autocrat allows you to attach documents or PDFs. Okay, so this is where I'm going to be issuing the students a certification if they're successful. So I've structured an Autocrat, and I can show it to you when it loads. Okay. So basically it asks you to name your job. Okay. It asks you for a template. And so I've got a template set up and I can show it to you. So I basically create a template for whatever my certification or the communication, the attachment is going to go out to the student is going to look like. And so I've created an OCTI certification, says that student's first name / last name, and it's got to enter the today's date, has successfully completed their project management certification. So there's the template. Okay, and again, happy to give that to you. You can create it your own if you want. You can put your board logo up there, like whatever you want to do. Who wants the wrong certification? Where was I? Here we are. Okay, so then you go next. And so then it's going to ask you to, what data do you want to pull out of the form? So basically it says to, it scans the form and says, well, where is that data going to be found? So you can identify where it is on your spreadsheet. If you keep your fields identical, it will automatically pick it up. But because I changed the name, I didn't put this value in there, I have to manually do it. And you do it once and it's set, so it's not a huge deal. It will also populate with a whole list of options if you want, right out of your spreadsheet. Okay. So then you go next. So then it asks you to name the file. What structure of the file do you want to have? Because it's going to create a unique file for every instance of this merging of information. So I've said student name, last name, first name, school, and sector. So that's each student is going to have a unique searchable document. You can use student numbers, OEN numbers, like however you choose to identify individual students. I'm going to want multiple output modes. So basically every time this is going to run, it's going to be a unique file. But for some reason, if I ever wanted to just do it as one massive document and then have to hand them out individually, I could do that too. I can choose to keep it as either a Google Doc or as a PDF. I personally like a PDF for this because it basically means the kids can't muck around with it, right? Or not easily, at least. The only downside to PDFs is PDFs tend to be larger files, so it takes a little bit longer to send them out. Okay. I determine where are those successful completion files going to go. So I create a completed certifications folder, a dynamic reference. Apparently, I've never used this, but apparently it should allow you to, like if you wanted to further sort them by, let's say, school or that type of thing, it will allow it to work. I've never gotten it to work, so I just ignore it. And then basically I've set a merge condition. So this is basically, I've said, well, the certification status, if a kid actually has earned all 6 certifications, it's going to run this script. Okay. And share the document, yes. Allow the collaborators to rare share, no. Send from a generic email address, yes. And so then there's basically my communication. And then this is where you'd be able to pick up Warren, the situation that you're talking about. If a kid goes back and modifies a particular assessment, and is it going to be picked up when they finally do complete everything? I would suggest you want to set a runtime trigger. So I would run this form every day at a particular time. And then what happens is every day is it's going to run that calculation and it's going to scan, did that kid complete 6? Yes, no. If the answer is yes, then it'll run the script and issue that certification. And so that way kids can continually go back and like re-edit, re-answer however many times they need to in order to be successful. It just means there might be a bit of a delay between when the kid actually does the work and when they actually get the certification, right? But provided it's within a day, it's not a huge deal. I mean, traditionally they're waiting weeks or months to get certifications from vendors at this point. So a day is a pretty good turnaround.
Chris, how long, just out of curiosity, how long would you put a time limit for students to do the modules, like just for your own record keeping?
That's up to you guys. I don't particularly care. I'd probably say within the course of a year. Like realistically, the way that these were structured so that each like module or each activity within the module shouldn't take more than 10, 15 minutes. I think we look for a whole activity of being like about half an hour for activity, including the assessment.
Okay, thank you.
And so that essentially here, and I'll finish this. Here, I'm going to take my runtime trigger off, and I'll show you a preview of what this actually looks like when it runs. So you can actually do a preview. So you want to make sure everything's looking right and kind of that type of thing. Oh, it says no rows will emerge because I haven't met any of the criteria. Well, that sucks. All right. So then I can go back and I can edit the form if I want to. Okay. Well, here, I'll just override one so you can just see. So I'm just going to enter a 6. Okay. I'll go back to my autocrat, open. Okay. I'll do the preview. Okay, so preview for the first mergeable row. So if you click on it, it's going to generate the preview. Takes a bit of time, obviously. Okay. So there you should see how you've structured your name, naming the file, and if you click on it, then you should see the template show up with all the data that you want it to be. And if it looks good, then you're good to run your autocrat and just let the script run. You should also probably receive an email to whatever email address you had indicated attached to your form. So then you should be able to see what that communication looked like as well. Okay. Let me get back at it. How do I get out of this? Where am I? There it is. Okay. So essentially, that is all of the back end for the SHSM Project Management certification. We've only done the automation within the Project Management certification. So, but like the infection control, the communication certification, like they're all structured in such a way that it provided the assessments are multiple choice, it's easy to migrate them in and then apply the same automation and formula to those that has been done to this. So it really becomes quite scalable. It does take a little bit of time just to wrap your head around how are you going to structure it, where's it all going to be housed, all of those types of things. And I strongly urge you to kind of think about that up front. And if you need to reach out to bounce ideas off of someone, then please feel free to contact me. But all that little planning and front end work will really help make your experience more efficient and have a cleaner workflow for you. And hopefully provide some more enhanced opportunity for your students. Okay. I guess at this point, does anyone want me to go into specific details on any one element, go back over anything, any other questions? Like, it's up to you guys.
This is great. Thank you so much for developing this. This is great.
Oh, right. So there's a question on copying the site. Okay, so let me show you guys that to make sure that everyone's clear on how that works. Okay, so to copy the site, it's a very straightforward process. Can everyone still see the screen? Perfect. So you go up to the sprocket. Oh, no, not the sprocket. Where is it? Here it is, the three vertical dots, and you go duplicate site. So once it's been shared with you, and we'll share the draft version of the site with you, you go to duplicate site. And this is where you can name it whatever you want. It's not going to affect anything. But this is the critical piece, is you want to change the drive. You want to save it to whatever your own local drive is, right? Particularly if you're working in a shared drive environment or what have you. You want to put the duplication on your drive, okay? And if you're using add-ons, this is a unique thing with add-ons that I've discovered, is they have to be associated with an individual's account. So you need to actually have the file in a personal drive. Shared drives will not work because no one person in a shared drive has full ownership of that drive, and you need it in order to, it has to do with the licensing or the permissions of that add-on. So when you're using add-ons, always work from a personal drive or like your drive, and then you can share out with whoever on your team or within your system that you want to, but someone has to be the owner because someone has to have a licensed or authenticated that add-on to run within the context of your Google account, okay? Yeah, so choose wherever you want to put it. Okay, so, I don't know, I'll put it in here. And you select it, and then you basically go duplicate. And what it's doing is it's duplicating each of those HTML pages, and it's basically going to send you an email when it says, yep, everything's been copied over and it's yours to do with as you please. Okay, so that's really as straightforward as the copying the site becomes. Please, when you are looking to start editing the site, please try to make sure that you're editing your copy of the site, that maybe you include your board email at the top in the name, and that way you know it's wire DSBs or TDSBs, whoever, and that way if you see the draft, then you're potentially editing our master draft site that we share out with people. Don't worry, you're not going to mess with the student, the one that's posted, because like I said, we posted the original and we keep one in the background to share out with people. Okay, so if you completely blow it up, don't feel bad. We may not let you leave it down for a couple days, but we'll get over it. Okay, so that's I just showed you how you get the site. If you want all of the Google Forms and the Excel sheets, that's a little bit of a different. I'll have to share those with you myself, which I'm happy to do, or I'll share with you my folder, and then you can just basically cut and paste to your own drive as you need to. Yeah, happy to do that, Helen. Okay. Great. All right.
When you're,
yeah.
I missed that first part of what you said. When you're making your own copy,
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to copy the entire project management certification with one transfer, or do you have to do each module like separately, like module 1.1, module 1.2?
The site will come across as one complete file. So you'll just get the whole site, you hit publish, and away you go. You're off to the races within the context of your own board. The only thing that you'll have to do is if you want all the automation and all the spreadsheets and the Google Forms, that's a separate thing that I'll have to share with you because not every board uses Google. And so that's why we didn't leave it exclusively Google. But I'm happy to share the Google end of it with you as well. And the only thing that you might have to do with that then is when you're going to modify, if you do take the Google forms that I share with you, you'll probably have to edit the assessment tabs, because what this is this links to my Google form. You want to make sure it links to your Google form. And it's easy to do that. You can basically just remove the one, you go to insert, and then you want to go down to forms, and then you basically scan for wherever the form is on your drive and insert it. And then you're off to the races with your version of the Google form. And you'll have all your automation and all that type of stuff on it. Okay, great. Does anyone have any other questions?
Sorry, Chris, it's Helen. I had to pop off earlier for a bit because I had another meeting with Con Ed. I'm just wondering, can you share the site link for the YDSB site that you've created for your teachers to use and then your students to access by email, or?
Sure. It's going to look almost identical to the Opti site.
Okay.
The only difference is that the YDSB site is going to have the assessment pieces embedded, so that, and it's basically, the structure is exactly as it's shown here, is that they work through module 1, then the assessment for module 1 is at the end, they complete it, and then they can move on to module 2, complete it, module 3, et cetera, et cetera. If a kid really wanted to, they can do them out of order. If they really want to jump ahead and say, ooh, module 4 looks cool, let's go in there. Like, yeah, they can. There's no big, it's not restricting them to do it sequentially, but they kind of do build on each other. So that's why I really would recommend that they work through them one at a time. And the way that the sites are, all of the sites are structured is that, like, the material, the content is a lot of YouTube, minimal amounts of kind of like reading. It's very student friendly from that perspective. There are, the way it's designed is that, like, I'll show you one of the earlier ones, where there are multiple videos, like, it's scaffolded in such a way that if the kids decide to watch the shortest video on everything, they can still complete the assessment, all the certification.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah, you're just saving me time, Chris, when I copy yours. You know how it is.
Yeah, and that's why we did this, right? That's because we know this is something that it's needed, and yeah, we should have.
Can I ask you more of a management piece to it, Chris? Yep. Are you using this for your virtual school? And then I guess, because you guys have your virtual school students still linked to your homeschool for entry into your management system, right?
Yep.
I don't know how I'm going to do it. They will not let me share my students with my my homeschools right now. So I'm just.
I'm using this with everyone.
Okay.
Like, I'm basically, what I'm doing is I'm creating a student Google site that I'm pushing out to all my SHSM students.
Okay.
And we're basically posting all the opportunities that we've planned on that site. So this will be one that they can click through and work through, and it's got multi-sector applications, so they all can do. But we're basically saying, do this one, and it's one of your electives, and it's available to you. We're also looking at hosting any other purchased certifications, same thing, on that same site. So if I decide to do, I don't know, was it watercraft operators licenses, and I buy X number of licenses for that, like I'll work out whatever it's going to look like to share that with students, and then I'll post that opportunity. So students might have to register through a Google form saying they want to do it, and then I push out that information to them afterwards. But that's how we're looking to approach things.
Can you share that site with me so I can take a look at how you're planning to do that? I haven't had a chance to brief to set up sites for my SHSM virtual students and all the rest of the board. Like I'm buried right now and stuff. So yeah, if you could do that, that'll be great. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I'm happy. We're still in development of it, but absolutely, when it gets to a point that it looks somewhat complete, like I'm happy to share it.
Perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
No problem.
And just for people to know, I just was on a call with my Con Ed people, and I got the GLN 4.0. You know how we're looking for a substitution for the co-op piece for SHSM? My Con Ed people agreed to running a course in the night school. So you may be able to do that with your Con Ed people.
That's great to hear, because I'm wondering if you could also, within that course, if it's specific to SHSM, support the teacher in actually building experiential certifications within that course itself.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing in our board. It's going to be coded a special, it's going to be the GLN 4.0, but it's only for specialist high school major students is what we've done. And I've discussed that with our Con Ed person, and we're going to post the job posting based on that it will be somebody who's had this experience with SHSM, and then we'll bring in experiences into the course that way.
And apologies, are you offering it as a 2-credit as well?
It's night school, so it falls
Sorry,
under it has to fall under a 1. It won't fall under a 2 based on our night school format. But then we'll do that plus a substitution of other or major is what we're going to.
Sorry, in my mind, I was thinking the DCL course right there. But you gotcha. It's a 1 credit, obviously. And